The last video I posted was me having worked on the van for about 7 to 8 days straight. That was during spring break. Now, Friday, Saturday, at the end of spring break rolled around. Covid-19 hit to such an extent that essentially everybody was put on lockdown. So I have been working on the van as much as possible during this time, and I just started filming clips of what I was doing, but wasn't necessarily talking about it in the moment the way I have in the past. So I figured it would be a good idea to kind of go back and kind of review everything that I've done up until this point, so that it kind of lines up with all the rest of the videos, so that there's a consistent timeline. I can look back and say, okay, so it was during this time that I was doing these things, and so that it makes sense to you as a viewer in regards to what's happening. And then we'll go from there. I have some more recent clips that I have been talking, so then I'll just add that in too, and it'll all line up, hopefully, as best as possible. Okay, so these first few clips are of me having taken out this bathroom window. So I knew it had a lot of rust, took it out, cleaned it up. I sprayed a rust-proofing paint around the rim and then reinstalled the window. I gave the van a bath. I drove it up into the driveway and sprayed it down, washed it. When I got inside, I knew that I was gonna find leaks. It was just a matter of where and how bad. And so what I did is I marked all the leaks that I could find with some masking tape and just marked out like where the water was coming from. And one of the biggest ones that I found was in the windshield, and I was pissed because when I got the van painted, one of the things they had to do was remove the gasket, and like they removed the old gasket, put a new one in, and I was like, okay, cool, no more leaks in the windshield. There was a big leak. So I'll show you later, but we ended up taking the windshield out ourselves, and I was so scared to do it, but it ended up being so much better than what they had done. Went to Home Depot and bought the materials for the subfloor. So we got an underlayment, we got reflective insulation, and then we got plywood. And essentially used the underlayment to make a template of the floor. Like we rolled it out, measured it out, put it up against the edges and cut it out, and then we used that to cut the wood and the reflectics. I was really happy about it. Because putting the floors in, I feel like, was the very first step that let me know that we were really doing this. Because I mean, it's taken almost a full year to remove everything and clean it up and patch it up to be in a place that we can then start building it back up again. So to be able to go to Home Depot, to drive the van, go to Home Depot, buy the plywood, and buy other materials to then put the subfloor in, let me know, okay, once the subfloor is in, then we can start building it up. That was wild to me, and I was so happy. Like doing that snow angel on the reflectics was a very joyful moment for me. And so I decided to extend the flooring a little bit in the van. But in an effort to do that, I had to build a little box to go underneath that floor area. So at the same time that I was building this little box for the floor, he was building the wheel well boxes. The wheel well boxes came out really good. He did them at an angle. Because at first I was like, we could just go straight up and down and across. Like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Just up, front face, top, boom, we're done. He knows how to do math, where I do not. So I let him take the reins, and he did it at an angle, and they're beautiful, and they're very strong. So I cannot complain about that at all. Okay, now this is a clip of the, oh my gosh, I feel like now that we've done it and they're up, like I don't even think about it anymore. Like the ribs. Okay, so this, we had such a hard time making the ribs for the walls. So because the walls are curved, we had to scribe the angle. And so we scribed the angle on one piece of board, finally got it to a place that we were happy, but we realized that even though we did the back side to meet up against the wall, we didn't leave enough space for the front side curve. So I ended up having to do 2 different scribes of 2 different areas, and then we had to glue them together to have a decently accurate template to make all of our ribs for the walls. And the ribs came out really good. We ended up making 5 ribs, and then we had braces in between. Like the floor, it was something that made me really confident in moving forward in the project and let me know that, like, okay, the floors are down, the ribs are up. Now that means that eventually we'll be able to put walls up. And then once we put the walls, we can build the furniture. And it was just like, I feel like the more we do and accomplish inside the van, the more real this becomes. Not to say that it wasn't real to begin with, but it's one thing to just visualize what you want, but it's another thing to do the work to make it happen. It's been, on some days, a very surreal experience, and on others, a very grounding experience. I honestly don't think I'd be able to do it by myself. Having my partner's help has been incredibly helpful, both like in the progress of doing everything as far as measuring and cutting and putting together, but also mentally. I feel like a lot of times I can be so fearful of doing things that I've never done before that I psych myself out about it and I don't think I can do it. And I request help, and he offers that help, and then I come to find out that yes, while I love and appreciate him being here and have his help, that maybe it wasn't that hard to begin with and I probably could have done it. But regardless, I think I just need that exterior push to help me along the way. So all that to say that it's been a good time having help. This is me modeling our spray foam insulation. I really didn't like the way it looked when it came out of the bottle. Oh, yeah, so I bought a full set of weather stripping for all of the doors, and then I bought a new set of tail lights because they were weathered and weren't very bright, and they were cracked and kind of falling off in a few places. So I bought that from an aftermarket website. Fairly easy process. Like, the most difficult part was figuring out which weather stripping goes to each door, but that's pretty easy to figure out as far as like the sizing goes. But the one thing that was so frustrating about the weather stripping is that you could take the rubber piece off, but then the adhesive that they put on there was stuck like in the crevices. And because this van is so old, and I'm sure this weather stripping has never been changed before, like, that adhesive was stuck on the paint. Stuck. By the end of that week of me doing all of the weather stripping, the tips of my fingers were so sore because I was like using my nails to scrape it off, because I felt like the Goo Gone didn't really help. Like, if anything, the Goo Gone made it harder because it made it much more wet. I was able to get it done, obviously, but it was a pain to do. Clearly I was struggling getting this light out. It was just really old, and I think what happened was when the van got painted, they took the lights out and then put them back in too soon. Like, the paint wasn't dry yet, so it all adhered to each other, and I could not get that light out. My dad got the light out, but at the cost of the paint. Like, we ended up scratching the paint a little bit, which I was really upset about at the time, but I don't see how we would have gotten that light out any other way, to be honest. A lot of times I just come out here and sit in the van and stare, especially on the days that I felt defeated, or like maybe the weather was bad and I didn't necessarily feel confident in doing anything out here while it was raining. I would just come and sit and stare and visualize what it is that I wanted, and kind of like mentally put together how I was going to construct the cabinets or how I was going to construct where the fridge was going to go. And so there was one day I came out here and I just measured everything out. I laid down, marked where my feet were, and figured out kind of the layout of what I wanted, which is really beneficial because now when I come in here, I see the lines on the floor and I have a better idea of what it's going to feel like coming in here. There was also a day where I just opened up the garage and cleaned it out. I organized all the wood we had, all the supplies, all the tubes of adhesive and silicone and paint and rust proof stuff, and I took out all of the old pieces from the van that I had saved, like the cushion covers and different pieces of wood and all the drawers and stuff, and cleaned it out, organized, figured out what I really wanted to keep and what wasn't so necessary anymore, threw it away, cleaned it up, put it back in a better arrangement than it had been before. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this behind me anymore, but I just repurposed the bug screen for the windows for a bug screen for this vent here, because one of the main problems that this van had was these vents weren't covered properly, and the holes are so big that bugs were able to get in and they were able to nest and essentially live for free in this van, and I did not want that to happen. So I just repurposed the bug screen for this area so that I don't have cockroaches living with me. Okay, during this time too, this is also really exciting because, again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this is getting real. I started making purchases for big items and getting all the appliances that take up space in the house, but it's just exciting. Okay, so now we've come to the point in time where I started talking again in the clips that I was filming, and it was mainly because at the time we were getting a lot of rain, and the leak that I knew I had but didn't know how to address was seemingly worse. And I think it was just the fact that we had such prolonged rain that the water was building up. As you can imagine, I was extremely frustrated and didn't quite know how to deal with this leak because I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. But now that I'm here in the future, I can tell you that I'm pretty sure I figured it out and have found a solution for the time being that I think ultimately is the only thing I can do. So I think we're good. I'm pretty sure we're good to continue moving forward and building. But at the time, like, it was really frustrating and really devastating, and I wanted to cry. So I'm in the van right now, and I'm very frustrated, to say the least. This is a frustration that I've had since I pretty much got the van. To be clear, like, that frustration is just the van being very leaky. And, you know, living in Florida, it rains quite a bit. That rain allows you to see where the leaks are happening, and it's really frustrating when I feel like I have solved one leak and it comes back, or you never really noticed a leak before, but it's been raining for 2 days and now you have a leak in multiple places that you never really noticed before. All that to say, I'm super frustrated. I cannot move forward with this project, with this van build, until the van is watertight. And I realized that I bought a van that's older than me, and with buying an older van, there's going to come a lot of complications and a lot of things that have to be dealt with. And the leaks are a big one. So yeah, the very top of the van has had a leak for the longest, and I've sealed and resealed and cleaned and resealed it multiple times, and it hasn't really seemed to help. It's been weird because some rainy days, like, there's no leak at all, and then I came in here this morning and it's very wet. I'm about to show you how bad the leak is from the roof. This is a towel that I pulled from the inside of the van at the top where I mentioned the leak was. Just wait, just watch, look. Here's the towel. And there's more. So you can imagine my frustration with this, right? I removed all the caulk, let that seam dry out. It dried out maybe 2 or 3 days. I used an air compressor can and sprayed out the water that was left over, wiped it up, let it dry more. I used rust-proof paint and like sprayed it out and then painted it in the seam because there was some rust showing up. And then I caulked up that whole area really good and then went around the whole van and looked for little imperfections and caulked those up, cleaned them up, caulked them again, and called it done. Now it's supposed to start raining in the next few hours, and it's supposed to rain overnight into tomorrow and the next couple of days. I've got my fingers crossed very tightly. I've got my fingers crossed because this is going to be the 3rd time that I've done this. I'm tired of doing this, as I've already expressed, but I'm hoping for the best. Let's just do it. Fuck it. Oops, excuse me. It's wet. I'm currently dumbfounded. Let me get to the point. I used this spray bottle to spray the seam of the van to get rid of some pollen and dirt so that I could clean it up and reseal some tiny holes that I found. The water dripped from the top of the van down onto this plastic metal seam thing, and it like sucked itself into the plastic. You see that?
Which one?
Right here. Look right here.
Okay. So I'm looking in the wrong spot. No, I don't see nothing.
I'm spraying right here. You see that?
Yeah.
And I saw it happen, and I was like, what? I did it again, and I saw it happen again, and I was like, what? Because you always think about leaks happening like water coming down, right? Finding a crack, finding a hole, and flowing into that. But you never really think about a leak happening where water is flowing down, it catches up under a ledge and then gets sucked in. That's weird. I've never considered that. Plan for the day. Go around the entire perimeter of the van, clean the trim edges, both top and bottom, and clean it again, and then go back around and caulk top and bottom. And then we'll wait a few days for the rain to come, test it out, hope for the best, praying for the best. In this present moment, we have rewired the taillights and we're in the process of putting the solar panels up. That is more footage for another video. I think this one's long enough. I feel like I tend to talk a lot in my videos. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave us here, and once I gather up enough footage for another video, I'll put it all together. But yeah, thank you for bearing with me. I know these are coming out really slowly, months apart, but I am most focused on the present moment, on a day-to-day basis, coming out here and doing what I can with the energy and the time and the space that I have. So while the videos are spaced far apart, I'm out here almost every day working. So bear with me on that. I'll see you in the next one. Rather, you'll see me in the next one. Yeah.